Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Brittany.
And this is NFGeeks. Okay, so Brittany, you had an interesting topic to talk about, and it's kind of connecting with me on two levels, two NF levels. One is about the perception of humor and how different types see humor and find humor and don't get the humor in other types. Mm-hmm. And also sort of the process, how you share a process with not only the temperaments, whether you're an NF or not, but also within your own type. Whether you're when you're with another ENFJ or another ENFP or another, INTJ, whatever. So, all right. So why don't you talk about that experience? You were sort of right before we started. You were talking about some experiences you have with this, like direct experiences. So why don't you talk about that?
If I'm around other ENFJs, like I guess my type of humor, I find somewhat dry things incredibly funny.
Such as? Can you give an example? It's okay that the audience won't think it's funny. The ENFJs might get it. So.
Like when we were talking about the Uber Munchkin.
The Uber Munchkin.
I find that hilarious.
That's not what I said, but that's okay. All right, so
same thing. The Overman, Uber Munchkin. It's the same.
Okay, and you're saying the other ENFJs also found that funny.
And we find it hilarious. And every time we hear Uber, we automatically think Uber Munchkin, and you think we're ridiculous, and everybody thinks we're ridiculous for laughing at stuff like that.
Yeah.
And can't help it. It's like literally, well, if something happens, any ENFJ I've ever known, if they're around, we'll all look at each other and like start laughing.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
that's great. All right, so it's the Uber Munchkin thing is would you call it a mundane thing or a silly thing? Or?
I don't know. It's kind of, it shouldn't be funny, but it's hilarious to me.
Are there other examples that you've encountered with this?
It's just. Not in particular, but I know like even when we're watching the movie, it's like it was like parts where no action was really going on, but it was just like a body language type hilariousness. And like with Josh, like I'd look over him, he'd look over me, we'd just both start laughing like uncontrollably.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, let's talk about the opposite. When has there been disconnect with this? When have you thought something was funny and you tried to describe it, even to the other NFs, and it just fell flat? And what happened? What was the entire experience for you?
I've been looking into going to big girl schools and
all right, that's a great
schools.
concept that you talk about. How would you describe big girl school?
A 4-year school where I'll learn and get a better experience. Yeah.
Okay, so big girl school.
Big girl school. I was looking at a few of like the women's colleges with an INFJ friend of mine, and like the whole place was magical to me. It was in the fall, like the breeze is turning up leaves, and it's like all these like cute kind of quirky buildings, and the whole place is like magic. I'm like surprised a unicorn would go running by. But to me it was amazing, and I'm like so excited, and I'm like overly excited. And my INFJ friend, I'm like talking to her about something, and she just looks at me and she goes, "You're weird." And I'm like,
boy, that's saying something from an INFJ. Really. Talk about, that's great, INFJ. Could you get into this glass house so we can throw some stones at you? Can we do that, INFJ? What are you thinking? I know which INFJ this was too. This was Yoda.
Yes.
Yeah, this was Yoda. I know who did it.
And it's just,
which is really, because you're an odd bird yourself, really shame on you. Okay, go ahead. Keep telling the story. So she said this, right, from an NF. That must have been horrifying.
And I'm like, yeah, what, you weren't excited? She's like, I was, just not quite as excited as you.
Oh, that's great. You did her inflection in her voice. You just did her voice.
She's great.
Yeah, that's great. You sounded like her. That was wonderful. All right, but that probably wasn't too bad because it was NF.
Right.
So,
it's like, it never hurts me when people don't find it funny, because then I just laugh more.
Sure.
If somebody doesn't find something I find funny, I can't stop laughing.
Oh.
It's a very odd concept.
All right, have you had any of these experiences outside of NF, like with other types, and have it go really negative or awful?
Not negative, I don't think. Like, I've had a few, what was it? I think it was an ISTJ who I was friends with, and he would just take the idea and run with it, and like make me confused about my own why I was laughing.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way? This is an interesting description.
Just like I'd find something funny, be like, "What's funny?" I'd explain him the whole situation. It's hard because I don't know a situation right now, and he'd take it and turn it and make me feel bad for laughing at it.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way? Like, are they insulting you, or just saying
Just
that's
making
not funny?
me feel ridiculous in a very nice way almost, but just making me feel completely ridiculous that I laughed at that particular thing.
Oh, that's great. I have I don't know if I might have told the story on NFGeeks. I'll tell it again because it reminds me of this. So, yeah, I've made so many videos. I know I repeat myself, but so many. This is a story. But I don't know if I told the story or not. This is a story about my sister, who's an ISFJ, and she hates this story. But she was only like 15, so, we can cut her some slack. She was a kid when this happened. But she was having a fight with my mother about something. I think she wanted to go out with friends, and my mother didn't want to go. And I was in the living room watching War of the Worlds. This is the old War of the Worlds from the early 50s. Yeah, the good one. I was watching it. I'm like 7, maybe 8, like a kid. I'm a kid watching it. I was into sci-fi, so I was loving it. And so she comes in the living room all sort of upset about not having her way. Yeah, as a teenager, no personality flaw here. As a teenager. But she's angry. She's not happy. She's angry about it. She's sort of taking it out on me a little bit. She kind of said something like, "You always monopolize the TV." And I was like, I have permission. So I sit back. And so it's the scene where they're evacuating Los Angeles. And it's the most organized evacuation ever, and everyone's with suitcases walking. And at some point, a truck gets a flat tire, okay? You have a scene, you see the flat tire. And I'm a kid, I don't know what's right or wrong, so I just blurted out. I said, "Oh, see that? Isn't that funny? That guy's got a flat tire." And my sister snapped back at me, she said, "That's not funny, okay? Now they're not going to escape, the Martians are going to get them, and they're all going to die."
Oh my God.
Yes. Isn't that great? And to this day, if I see War of the Worlds on cable or something, I actually say that out loud when that scene comes. I said, that's not funny. It's by myself. I'll be in the dark and I'll say, that's not funny because, they're not going to escape. The Martians are going to get them and they're all going to die.
It's like you're trying to convince yourself that it's not funny. Secretly inside you're like...
I know. I thought it was really traumatizing about it. But that's my experience of sort of, having something in humor than someone like an SJ coming in. That story really connected with me. All right, well, let's talk about, that's about humor, but I'd like to talk about your experiences of sort of having a parallel experience with ENFJ, because that always fascinates me with the ENFP stuff. I've encountered lots of ENFPs, loved and hated them, or loved and hated things about them, and yet I always, are totally in tune with them. I always know why they're doing what they're doing, how they're talking, whatever. We even look alike a little bit. If you watch the Angela videos, she could be my daughter. You know what I mean? No, everyone would be convinced. So what experiences have you had with parallel experiences with ENFJ personality?
I have 2 things, but one, it's like if I'm talking to an ENFJ, it's kind of weird. It's like we'll start messaging each other at the same time, or I'll call one. He's like, I was just about to call you, or he'll beep in on my second line when call waiting. He'll be like, "Oh, that's him. I was just calling you." So somebody needs to hang up now. Or just even with Josh, I'll text him going, "Hey, have you done this paper yet?" And he's like, "No," and we're very similar in that way. And we always go, "Oh, I knew if I didn't do it, you've probably been one of the people who wouldn't have done it anyway, so I didn't feel quite as bad." And it's always actually been a really positive experience as far as we're completely on the same level, it seems. And we can think that, well, let's look at whoever I'm with, my ENFJ friends, and I'll know what they're thinking. Or we'll just talk at the same time about the same things all the time or not. And although it's I'm kind of weirded out sometimes when I'm with ENFJs, because I'm used to being the one that just listens and being there to support whoever needs being supported. And then they try to do the same thing with me, and I don't know how to act.
Oh, that's
very
interesting.
confusing sometimes. So.
Well, let's dig deeper to that. What is the fear underneath that in the acting? What's the underlying emotion or unconscious thing or fear? What's underneath not acting?
I don't know if
dig
it's
deeper.
A fear, more of a confusion.
Okay.
Because I don't know if it's typical with the ENFJs, but it's I'm always the one that people come to me.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of take relationships. The other person just takes what they need from the ENFJ. Always if they need somebody to talk to, always there, but then not seeing them for a while until there's another problem they need somebody to talk to with. I find that I have a lot of relationships like that. So I'm used to being the one who's there to be talked, like, to have somebody to talk to and support other people. So when somebody's there for me, I'm like, what? I don't understand. It's a very confusing experience.
Some of the experiences I've had with encountering my own type is sometimes I don't like my own type because I see all the foibles and the mistakes, and you know, my sort of shadow side comes out because I see the things I hate in myself in them. And it's not their fault. Because their problems are my problems, so what? But still, I have this sort of, sometimes I have this sort of visceral reaction, like, oh, I hate that because I do that, and I hate you now. So when are, so I want to know is, when do you encounter that in ENFJ, and what are the specific ENFJ stuff that you sort of see in other ENFJs that you're like, oh, I hate that they're doing that because I do that too?
Serious manipulation.
Really?
Like, not in a good way trying to convince somebody, but just absolutely to get what they want and what they need. I've seen it with a couple of my ENFJ friends, and it's just, it is like the darkness. It's like, it is complete, I don't know how to explain it. It's like complete mind control sometimes.
Really?
And I'm kind of jealous about that because I can't get people to do much most of the time. But it's scary at the same time that people are so willing to just bend to their will, it seems.
I like the idea of jealous because I had an experience of this with another ENFP once. It was actually Dan, the ENFJ, his mother was an ENFP. And there was this rumor that Obama was coming to town because he was in the state, he was nearby. And so, you know, and in fact, Dan had told me about it, so I figured, well, you know, if I go to City Hall where he might come by, what's the worst thing that can happen? He doesn't come by, I go home, you know. So I went, and I got all dressed up, you know, my ENFP style. Because I don't live in a very stylish area. I live in a very blue-collar area. So I got all sort of dressed up and professor-like, and I was like, I'm going to be the sharpest person at this place. Obama's going to spot me and everything. I'm going to be the best-looking person. And I came in second place because Dan's mom and ENFP looked better than me. And I noticed it right away. And I was like, damn her. She totally, like... Oh,
stole your mojo.
Right, she stole my mojo. She took my thunder. I can't believe it. As soon as I saw her, too, I was like, shit. You know? And she was. I was number 2. She was number 1. You know? I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. Like, the second I saw her, I was like, oh. You know? I thought I had everyone beat. And I did have everyone beat. You know, 100 people there. Except her. Came in silver medal. All right, what are some other negative things you've encountered and how it's hit you?
I notice sometimes they just don't. Some ENFJs don't know when to stop nagging people about their problems.
Oh boy, I'm so glad that you said that because I have had that experience directly.
And I feel like I've probably done it.
That's very insightful, Britt.
Well, because we know something's wrong, and it irritates me that you're not telling me.
Yes.
Don't tell me there's nothing wrong.
Yep,
I know.
You're actually pretty right about that, and that's not a bad position. But there is sort of a relentlessness.
Yeah.
Yes. Has it been turned on you?
Yeah, that's why I hate it so
much,
and
God.
I realized.
Oh my God.
So I think that might be the worst because like they don't stop, and it just makes you angry sometimes. Like I know when it's happened to me, I'm just like, no, it's nothing, just stop, and it's the most infuriating feeling.
Oh, that's great, because that's a big difference between the P and the J, because when it happens, again, this is the P thing. It comes in, it's like, okay, I can barely take it, but that my P side says, well, they mean well, so it's okay, so I keep taking it. You know what I mean? I don't actually, like, get frustrated with it. I know, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And I don't stop it, because I don't have that ability, I don't have that cutting judgment to stop it. Because I'm sort of like saying, well, you know, they're trying to promote ideas, I should think about what they're thinking, and and that just reinforces
it's being annoying.
Right, but that doesn't stop it in any way.
Yeah.
All right, do you have any final thoughts about any of this that you'd like to share?
Not really.
No? That's it?
I'm tapped out.
You're tapped out now? You're totally drained?
I am.
You've done enough? All right, well, that's great. Brittany, thanks you for everything, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Did a great job.
Thanks.